Family fans, it's another episode of Back Nine Bets, and we've got two guests on the show today, aka more than just one, really, because we got my man Joel, aka Draftmaster Flex, who's now the co-host of this wonderful show that we will be doing on a Monday evening for you guys at 6 Central, 7 Eastern, and he is looking glorious as ever, and he's one of the two very, very awesome personalities we've got on our screen yet today. How the hell are you doing, Joel?
I'm doing good. I am super excited for Masters Week. The Super Bowl of golf, it is upon us. I know it's Masters Monday, but there can't possibly be enough days leading up to Thursday, enough time leading up to Thursday to get us ready for the amazing weekend we have ahead.
Yes, I totally agree. It should almost happen when it's like daylight savings in the fall so that we can have that extra hour of but that would be a Saturday, which is still fine, right? But I don't even know if that makes any sense. It's still the same daylight. Anyway, the next Colgate ambassador that we have on the show here is sitting in the top right corner there, and his name's Jason Rouslin, aka DSF Golfer 23. How are you doing, my smiley friend?
Guys, I can't be more excited right now. You guys, I know, follow my stuff a little bit, but like my voice typically goes pretty high. This week, it's at a 10 out of 10. I've got probably too much excitement. I was just telling you guys before, I'm going on Wednesday, my first time going to Augusta. I've got all those worlds. We've got DraftKings ReignMakers. We've got ReignMakers. I mean, this is our Super Bowl, and no one would tell us more than Jordan Spieth. I was watching his press conference today. First thing he said, this is our Super Bowl. It's another tournament, but it is our Super Bowl. So, yeah, guys, I'm so excited. Can't wait to dive in with you guys.
Oh, my God. My PayPal account is steaming right now. I've just been submitting, buying rare cards, I'm just going to town. The missus doesn't know. She thinks it's going to charity. Who the heck knows where all this money? No, I'm just
charity to shareholders of DraftKings, I guess. Yeah.
It's promotion. It's brand marketing. So that's what we're doing over there on the PayPal side of things. As always, this show is brought to you by rotoballer.com. Go check out rotoballer.com with every single need you can get there. We got me, myself, got Joe Nicey, Spencer Aguiar, T of Sports there doing all our things. We got Joe's Bible that he had. He wrote a DFS piece about every single golfer.
It's awesome.
His writing is so silky smooth, man. He's got that southern molasses tinge to it, and it's unrivaled in the industry, in my opinion. It's just a wonderful article. And then Spencer's 7 Deadly Sins is just the nerdiest, coolest, elimination center you can ever find, when it comes to a Masters article. So I'll be putting an article together myself with Breaking 100, and I might be making a list of a bet for every single golfer that you can find this week, which is going to be happening this evening. I've got myself a nice IPA that's going to really help get some creative juices going, and that's what's cooking over at rotoballer.com, folks. So,
hey, don't sell yourself short. You just put out a really good ReignMaker piece today, too. So,
thank you. Yes.
I read that before it came on. For anybody that's getting into the ReignMakers game, dude, check this article out. It's great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, full disclosure, I'm very confident when it comes to betting. I'm partially confident when it comes to DFS. I'm the next level down when it comes to talking about ReignMakers. I love this stuff though. The enthusiasm, energy towards it is right up there, but the confidence levels, that's why I've got both of you on here to kind of steer the ship. But I appreciate that, man. I felt like, a little bit of economics background can really help there. And it's been a fun time digesting all this stuff. So.
Yeah, Joel and I actually at the Valspar were a 1v1 for the whole weekend. I had Garrett Higo, he had Stefan Jaeger. We were going back and forth, and we ended up Joel ended up finishing first. I finished second. But yeah, it was literally until the last 3 holes we were going back and forth. It was a great competition.
Oh my God, I didn't even know that. That's amazing. We've got two guys
Joel,
that finished.
That was you in first, right?
That was, yes, and I do remember that. And it was a classic sweat. And what makes this ReignMakers kind of unique, it's different from DFS in that, we did have a lot of similarities in our lineup too, right? So it was really coming down to narrowing in on the Higo. I was following Higo. I'm like, no offense. I'm like, please bogey. He's trying to make
the last 3 holes. He literally tossed you the tournament at the last 3 holes. That was great. But I will say, he made a 38-footer on 9 on Friday afternoon just to get to the weekend. It was his 18th hole. But, yeah, I knew right there, I'm like, oh, I got a chance this weekend. When stuff like that goes down, you've got a chance. So
yeah, and the beauty of ReignMakers, before I let you tell people where they can find your stuff, Jason, is it's 5 guys. So one guy cocking up is a 20% impact versus like a 15-ish type situation. And, you know, if 2 guys like Thomas Dietrich and Brendan Todd, I had Sam Ryder and Matt Kuchar and Nick Taylor as 3 of my guys. And then I had Dietrich and Todd sitting inside the top 10 on Monday, and they shot 19 or 17 over par together.
No.
Like, what is going? That was my main single entry lineup, and I was sending Joel these screenshots all the time, and it was just like chaos. So,
yeah, Dietrich lost his irons on Saturday, and it carried over. I mean, lost.
Yeah,
he was hitting shanks. It looked awful. The shot tracker was a thing of beauty.
It was atrocious. I mean, when you're birdieing. Like when you only birdie of the days on the hardest hole of the golf course, you know your shit's gone astray. You know, like it's just, you know, you're upside down. So Jason, talk to us about what's going on in your life. I know there's a lot, and you like, you know, all about ReignMakers like me too. Tell us where you can find your stuff and what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. So normal DFS stuff, you guys can see in the background. I put out my for Fantasy Golf Bag, Drew and I. But for the ReignMaker stuff, I've been doing stuff with Lucky Trader, and I've just signed a deal with them to develop some tools that's going to help everybody get acclimated to what I think is the best fantasy game out there. I believe ReignMakers, and specifically PGA, is the absolute nut in terms of fantasy games for people that are like us, that have an edge, that like to dive into this stuff. So stay tuned. I can't give away too much, but just know that the tools we're going to be creating are just going to be second to none, and I can't wait to share it with everybody.
No, that's super exciting, dude. And there's not a lot of that out there right now, which I think is awesome, because once we can get it on the ground floor, you know, podcasts like these, tools like yours, tools like mine, it's perfect. You know, it's a great time to be alive.
So, Joel, people have complained to me and said, hey, dude, aren't you selling what you perceive as your edge away? And I'll say this is, you're still going to make the same lineups as us, right? I mean, we can give away the information. First, you're still going to make the same lineups as us. And second, the more people we bring into the community means more money DraftKings is going to put behind this, bigger prize pools, more collector challenges, stuff that we'll go into. So, you know, Joel, I think you'll probably second me there and say, sure, bring everybody on. Hey, they still got to beat us, right? You know, just more people means they still got to beat us. So what's your thought on that?
I laugh because my parents have been saying that to me for years. They're like, you give away your edge. Why are you telling everyone? And I laugh at that because, you know, yes, you know, I give away some of what I like each week and some of my thought process and strategy that goes into it. It'd be very difficult to, one, exactly replicate what I end up doing.
Bingo. Yep.
And then two, think about how many people we're competing with, right? There is so many people that go into the pool that, you know, strategy, high level, that stuff is kind of out there, right? And I'm probably not the only one saying some of the same things that I'm saying. I'm going through my process, what I find to be valuable, what works for me, how I put my spin on things. But for someone to be able to take that and exactly replicate it to what I'm doing and copy it, it's almost impossible. So
I agree with you.
I don't really think it gives away the edge. I think, like you said, what it does do is it brings awareness to something where I totally agree with you, Jason. This is a very unique style of gambling and playing DFS. In a way, it's the one time we could finally marry the daily version of DFS of like, you know, the week-to-week tournament with year-long collections and building your profile, building your card collection. And that's something that, you know, people like us, like, yeah, when you're down, it's great to move on to the next week and get a new start. When you're up, it's like, you had a great week and it's completely erased the next week. And then nothing for you anymore because you got to start over. So now it's like, hey, if I'm onto something, if I'm finding guys that are trending in the right direction, that doesn't just count for 1 week now, right? Now that's something that I can cash in on over the course of the year, which is what makes this style so exciting.
Really, really does. Byron, don't mean to stray too far here.
Let's
you can
go.
put us back on the tracks anytime. But so for me, one of the great things about the PGA ReignMaker specifically, the first set we had was obviously the Genesis drop. We're getting the second one coming up tomorrow. And this drop, in my opinion, for people that haven't gotten in yet, let's say they've, you know, been reading your stuff, Byron, getting interested in it, it's a great way to get involved. First off, the bottom pack, which you're going to get 5 cards, 4 core, 1 rare is $29.99 a pack. The great thing is all of those 5 cards are going to be playing in the Masters. And so the next thing is there's only 2 Group 4 golfers in the Masters this week. Mike Weir and the greatest golfer of all time. So let's just say you end up with the greatest golfer of all time in your pack, Tiger Woods, right? Well, there's still some namesake to that. That's the other side of this ReignMaker product that, like, hey, I got something with Tiger Woods' name on it. In 10 years after he retires with hopefully the most majors, that's just going to be worth money in and of itself. So that's the one thing I like about the pack. And then second, it's loaded with all of the stars. So if you haven't gotten involved, get involved with this drop coming up tomorrow. $30 is basically your barrier to entry here to get in a lineup. And I think it's a really wonderful set, stacked with 60% of Scotty Scheffler cards and so on and so forth. So I did put out a piece on Lucky Trader about this if you guys want to read about it. But I think it's a really plus EV set, way to booster up your collection if you don't already have a big one.
Yeah, because we were preaching, or at least I was, to avoid buying packs because I wanted to target golfers that I could know I was going to get. I did not want to spend $30 on an elite rich beam. You know, like that's
100%. That's why I did a lot of my buying for this Genesis set in the marketplace. I didn't want to be stuck with a Timothy Wilkinson legendary card when I could go buy, I got a Patrick Cantlay #1 cereal for like $100 the first day because I was just looking over and over at the activity. That's another side of the game. You mentioned a little bit in your article about, hey, you don't even have to enter these things into lineups. You can just invest in a player like Taylor Moore, for example, that you think is going to do good, buy a bunch of his cards. When he wins, it's tripled in value. Corey Connors has double and a half in value his cards over the last 2.5 weeks. So that's one aspect I love about ReignMakers. I don't know about you guys, but in addition to entering the contest.
Right. That's the best part is it's like a double dip because the better they do, the more points they're scoring for you in the contest and their card value is increasing at the same time, which is it's just incredible. So I do want to ask before we get into the Masters and guys that we kind of liking and whatever, how are you guys playing the supply and demand game this week? I think that there's going to be enough people coming into the market in Masters week to like supersede the amount of cards that are becoming an influx, like with these packs, right? Do you guys agree that the prices are still going to be going up the more, we get closer to the event?
Yeah. So I think for Joel, don't mean to step in front real quick. I think first off, the prices of the higher tiered packs at $3,500 and $500 says that, hey, listen, if you want to get the good cards that you can win 20K, 15K, like Joel did, you're going to have to pay a pretty penny. I think that preserves the value of the cards that are already out there. And the other thing is through this whole set is 1/3 basically of the mint of the entire year. We're getting it in 5 increments. So this week, it's only really 1/5 of the entire set that's going to come out to us. So in reality, the card supply, while yes, definitely increasing, it's not by significantly that much, given that there's only 52 golfers playing this week. So I think there's a lot of equity in the contest, honestly, this week, given how many players are playing and what cards are going to come into the supply.
Yeah, only 52. Like, that's the fun part is we're not talking about any live golfers. We're not talking about Bernard Langer. We're not talking about Larry Myers. We're talking about
Steve, but that is, another story for another time.
I know that's very sad that he's not part of it. But and is Ricky also not one of them? It's like two very popular golfers. Yeah. Like, why wouldn't you want to have those guys marketing your product for you? There must be some legalities behind it all, but
yeah. The Jordan, I think, is probably the one we can all guess since he's the face of FanDuel's product. But yeah, it's sad. Certainly, honestly, Joel, if he was in ReignMakers, I might have beaten you at the Valspar as I would have been all over him. And then he had to rub it in that I had a huge bet on him to win, and he threw it away on 16. I don't know if you guys remember.
Oh, dude, I was right there with you, man. I mean,
bro. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up another bad memory.
No, these are like good memories for me. We just teeing up top 5s in the outright market at the moment. So that's just all you could wish for. Joel, shall we get into
what's interesting also is another reason why like this tournament's a good example of, I'm right now starting to build my regular DFS lineups and it's tough to find value this week in the price tag, and I kind of forcing my way into live guys because I think those are the real value plays that I think I can get out. And with ReignMakers, that's not an issue, right? Like you can go out there in ReignMakers and you can go get who you want. You build your lineup the way you find appropriate. And like, I'm not going to be able to build a lineup for regular DFS that I feel is like really optimal for me because I have to squeeze in somebody that's low 7Ks to make me line up work. And there's not one golfer that low that I'm like, that guy's definitely a top 20 at this tournament. There's just not this year. So, what you're saying, there's really, I don't know how many guys are in the total field. There's a 52 for ReignMakers, but when you actually break down this field, when the time you get rid of all the old guys that just kind of get the pass to join, they're not really going to compete. And you look at who's really, competitive to the field. It's actually not a big field for the Masters. It's
70 guys, really, give or take.
Give or take, it's really not what you would expect. So that's good and bad from a gambling perspective. It helps you narrow down your player pool. You got to focus in on who you want to play, but it also probably means there'll be a little bit more focused ownership onto guys. So with ReignMakers, again, it's probably not going to be that issue. You know how many cards are out there. The likelihood is whatever cards are out there are going to be played. Are they all going to be in your tournament? No, but you can do a decent job kind of deducing which guys are going to be put where, and then your ability to get different is your ability to put together a roster that's not, just the optimal roster that you can put together. And can those guys go out there and give you a solid 4 days?
Yep.
Yeah. And let's talk about like optimal builds and things like that. And I noticed that there's a definite decrease in points per position when you go from single entries to those bankroll builders. I think everybody's putting their best cards into the single entry, obviously, because you want the highest upside there. So you can easily just go and get yourself some middle to like good golfers and throw them 5 in there and still like just keep doubling your money. That's what I've been really enjoying because I'm all about that blue chip product, like getting that golfer that's just going to grind you out some nice
dividends.
Yes, dividends, dude. That's exactly it, and it's just fun to have like a Sungjae Im is just a giant walking dividend to me. I feel like he's just going to be one of the golfers that's just going to be that for me the whole time. And buying the cheapest Sungjae Im cards to me is just like a cheat code this year. So that's kind of just my opinion. Joel, which kind of contests are you attacking this week? Are you going to bankroll build or are you going to try and take down something again?
Well, one mistake I just want to add that I think I've heard some people mention their first week trying this that people are making are, I invested X amount to build a lineup, but I only made $50 or it was just playing. I kind of want to correct people in that if you made $50, you didn't lose the amount you invested. That money is still you own in your cards. If you want to reinvest them next week, great. You don't have to invest it again. You just have to play it in the lineup. You can make another 50. Or you could sell those cards, make most of that money back, if not all of it, and you've made $50 on top. So it's not like, hey, I bought these cards and that money's gone. That money is an asset now, and then you can figure out how to best utilize that asset. And that's exactly going to leading into your question, Byron. What you can do, right? Figure out what your best approach is. It might be to go more conservative and find those tournaments where you can almost. They're not quite 50-50s, but they're like double ups almost where. I think it's like the top 4th round get like $50 safer. More likely you win if you have a pretty competitive lineup. You put them in there, you earn a couple bucks each week. If you want to go for the big fish and go for the big tournaments, like I did where I won the 15K, you go for those big tournaments. You can still you don't have to win first, or you can get 2nd, 3rd, 20th, 40th place will still cash you some money. So I think your tournament selection should be reliant on the quality of your lineup, right? If you're able to go out there with Scheffler and Morikawa and Rory and you have a very competitive roster, I think you should go after the big tournaments. Whereas if you can't get 5, what I would call all-stars, if you have more middling type guys, then go after a safer tournament. Go after one of those double ups, safer cash, make some money, and then, get that bankroll to get you a better lineup for the next tournament.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off that for a second. So one of the reasons why I'm joining over at Lucky Trader is I developed a ReignMaker playbook that is basically Excel-based. Byron, you and I have talked about this a lot. We live in there. That's our home. We understand it. Getting onto the web is definitely a step up for me. It's a little bit out of my realm, and being able to work with some great guys that help develop these things, it's going to come more mainstream. But one of the things that I included in this playbook that for people that are diving in, you can come and get the Excel version from me at Fantasy Golf Bag, and I can help anybody with it. Again, it's priced that it's really for the very serious person. Now I'm working on scaling it and getting there. But the thing that I included in is return on investment modeling. The most important thing you said there, Joel, is this is not a 1-week investment. This, in effect, is not just for this year, but likely part of next year. If they're following the NFL model, there'll be some prize pool money for in next year for this year's cards. But what's important is, let's say that you invest $100, you win $20 on that lineup that you invested $100 in for 1 week. Your return on investment is 20% that week. You still got 23 more weeks to go. Again, I would urge people that are good in Excel or, again, want to get it. I have that type of stuff for people done. It's just good to model what you think you could return on your investment and, again, have some randomized to it, all that kind of stuff. So for people that are diving in, I would recommend doing that, model it out. That's the way I did. That's how I knew what I wanted to invest, how much I wanted to invest, what cards I wanted to buy, find the good prices, and I see you've got that up right now.
Exactly. I think that was a perfect transition. Thank you so much. We worked hard on that one, and we knew at 20 minutes we were going to go right there. Just kidding. We don't know what the hell we're doing. But this is the Masters Week, folks. So who do you two think, Joel, we start with you. Who are you targeting this week? Are you going for like a mixed bag between Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy? Are you kind of diving into one guy that you kind of have a lean on? Are you playing all three of these guys in a lineup? You know, like lineups like that can get real spendy. You know, I think I looked it up. It's like $850 just for the cheapest rare card if you're doing Rory, John, Scotty, Tony, and Xander. Those five guys is $850, and to enter that into a single entry lineup, I think you would make $2,000 to win.
Okay, not bad.
That's to win, right? And that's like the thing. So you'd have to finish 7th, I think, to make your money back. But it's not like your money's gone this week. You know, you'll have those guys going forward. You can sell them after. It's not like a lost investment. It's not a sunk cost. You can still reap your rewards going forward. So, Joel, who are you liking this week here in the top range? I've got the long-term rankings here, which doesn't include my power rankings for the Masters this week. And then I've got my short-term rankings here where you can see like Justin Thomas is definitely looking a lot more of a short-term player. I think his current games is trending in the wrong direction. So talk to me about who you're liking there, Joel.
So, I mean, the first name that jumps out, Scotty Scheffler. I mean, he just looks like head and shoulders the best player in the world, like he was last year. And you know, it's probably not even a fair concern. The only concern I have with him is, can he really go back to back? Right? Is that really a fair thing to put against him? But that's what I'm thinking. Other than that, I mean, he's playing better than anyone else in the world. He's in great form. We know he likes this course, and we know it's a course where you need guys who like it. So, I am definitely prioritizing Scheffler. My main lineup is going to feature Scotty Scheffler for sure. And after that, yeah, I mean, I can see you getting to a lineup with Rahm and Rory, but I think what that does to you, and that's not, I haven't actually made my lineups yet to say I'm committed either way, but I think that what that does is it gets you to a point that there's probably a percentage of people that are going to go out there and play the optimum lineup, and they're going to have all three. And so now it's chalky, and that's where I'm a little hesitant. Right? I feel like you could still build a lineup of 5 guys in the top 10 or 12. Right? No one's coming out of nowhere to win the Masters. That's just not what's going to happen, right? So you can still get some guys in the top 10, 12, 15, which I would feel comfortable with, that aren't just the top 5. And I think you can get rid of some of that chalk effect by doing so and still have a very competitive roster.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if you want to put 3 of them together, maybe do it in the bankroll builder where it doesn't really matter about being unique, you know. Jason, have you got a specific kind of guy you kind of eyeing out because of market price, because of potential this week? You know, like, don't have to give away trade secrets, just kind of general ideas, you know.
No, I'll be totally honest. The first couple of weeks, and I think this applies to this week because we're getting a new set being dropped. Mm-hmm. I decided that I didn't care who I bought as long as I set prices on what I wanted to spend, and it covered that. So, for example, I got some of everybody. I got Homa, I got Shep, I got some of everybody at the rare level. I have one of every single good golfer at least. Cameron Young, for some reason, people didn't like in the beginning. I have 6 Cameron Young editions, 4 rare and 2 legendary. Another story on that legendary in a second. But, yeah, I absolutely love Cameron Young. He's been a guy I'm loading up on. I think this guy's upside is so high. His golf swing might be my favorite on the PGA Tour right now. I think there's so much hidden power in it. It's crazy. But Cameron Young, big. So what I want to talk about Cameron Young just really quick as an aside, I got a legendary card. I got it through a prize pack contest. So how you're mentioning bankroll, for people that want to get into ReignMakers and have a good set of cards and want to build a deck of cards like I have, and Joel, I think like you have as well, utilize these prize pack contests. For example, when I won a legendary one a couple of weeks ago, Cameron Young at the match play, Cameron Young was my captain, and I put 4 pretty much garbage guys around him. Only one made it out of the Sweet 16, and I ended up winning because people don't put their best cards into it. So if you put one good card into it, put him at your captain spot, you're so much more optimally built. Again, those are for people that are looking to build a collection. They also offer those contests in DFS as well that have been having a decent amount of overlay. I won like 2 legendary and 4 elite prize packs coming up for tomorrow that I'll get to open. Just again, a little aside for people that want to get into the game and build their number of cards. One. Number 2, yes, I'm going to enter a fully optimal lineup this week. What for me, the reason why is because my serial numbers are so low that I don't think anybody will beat me if I put Rory at the captain, Rom at the 2. The way I might get different is go to Corey Connors as my 3rd elite guy in there because I don't have many star elite players. I don't have all of them. So I have Rory and I have a Rom. Might look for that 3rd elite to be like a Corey Connors, maybe somebody that's just in the next tier that I'm high on, and then I'll put him with Scheffler. And Schauffele will be my guy that I'll pick as kind of that next one in, since there's no Jordan Spieth or Cameron Smith.
Yeah. And that's also such an interesting dynamic when it comes to this, because you got only 5 guys, but one of them's a captain. So that can really be a difference maker. And like you said, if your guy, like Matt Kuchar was my captain last week, and that was clutch, finishing 3rd was awesome at captain spot, although he didn't win, but it was still solid, to do a lot of damage because he's just gaining on everyone. And I love, I can see the captain ownership. It's a really cool thing. And to monitor that, because you can see who's the most popular. If you want to roster all those guys and then have the most popular guy not your captain, that's probably, also a way to kind of be a little different if you don't have good edition counts. You can play a bit of defense there. So that's kind of the way I've been looking at it because, I've got some core cards I'll be throwing in my rare, which are pretty shitty edition counts. So
yeah, that's the one thing. One other thing that I want to mention that I'm looking at for this week, you kind of already teased it a little bit, is Jon Rahm has committed to play in Vedanta Mexico Open, right? So we know he's going to play RBC next week. We know he's playing Masters this week. That gives him 3 of the next 4, plus he's probably going to play Wells Fargo. That means 4 of the next 5 tournaments for Jon Rahm. That in and of itself brings up the value of the card you're going to get over the next 4 weeks. So Jon Rahm would be one. And then looking ahead to next week, just a little bit of guys that I would say, okay, who do I want to add?
Yeah.
Well, we know whose favorite course it is on the PGA Tour and puts up results every year there. It's Patrick Cantlay. So he would be my next guy. I said the 5 of kind of your – or your 4, your Rory, your Rahm, your Scheffler, your Schauffele. But the next guy I'd add would be Patrick Cantlay because he's playing good. I think he's going to put up a good performance this week and could win next week.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joel.
Well, what I was going to add is I think that is the strategy, right? If you like Patrick Cantlay next week, it doesn't help that he's also probably a favorite this week, so his price might be high for this week. But the point is, if you can get a week ahead, going into next week's tournament when Patrick Cantlay is probably going to be the favorite, his price is going to go up. And you're going to have to pay the extra premium to get him. If you get him this week, you might save a couple bucks, be able to play him in next week's tournament, and then sell him again, maybe make a couple dollars. And the whole thing is just a net profit because you timed it right. And you thought through and you got ahead of the market seeing that he's the favorite for next week's tournament.
I bought Hatton at the match play. He went up $400 at the elite level before he teed off at the Valero. I said, you know what? If he beats me, fine, I'm selling him. And I sold him at the way high. I took a 10-day profit of like 40%. That's the stuff you can do, especially on these offsite events. If you know who the star is going to be playing. Now, again, Jon Rahm won't be the only one in Mexico. He'll be one of the 3. Those card values are just jumping in prices the week up. And I love that as a strategy.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Well, that is it's the captain spot too, because we were talking about how the captain spot means so much. Just 2 weeks ago at the match play, I had pretty close to what was going into the tournament what would have been considered an optimal lineup, basically all the 1 seeds in a lineup. But I put Rahm in the captain, which was a mistake because he didn't get out. And that really hurt me. And that lineup ended up getting like third in my tournament that I was in. Had I not had any of the other guys captain that weren't Rahm, I probably would have won. Yep. But because I had Rahm. So deciding your captain isn't just throwing a piece in. Like that, it really has to be the guy you are relying on because you have to hit your captain to be able to hit on a big tournament.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's 1,000,000% true. And I think it's again, like it's only 5 guys, but it's technically like 6.5 in a way, it's interesting that way. So someone that I don't understand what's going on is why is Tony Finau like $90 as the cheapest rare out there right now? Look at all these other guys ahead. We've got Jason, like Colin Morikawa being more expensive than Jason Day marginally, but I don't understand, especially like Tony Finau versus Justin Thomas, for instance. To me, I don't understand. And look, I'm very bearish on Justin Thomas right now. So that's
I am too. I'm with you on that. I think the putting is broken. So
yeah. And I was just thinking, like, this guy's been given a Lamborghini with a professional driver of it, like a co-pilot in Bones, and he's just doing nothing with it. He's just spinning his wheels, burning rubber. I don't know why Tony Finau's so cheap. I love what he can get around Augusta. Like, the guy's sensational around this golf course. He's one of the best, course history dudes. He's not going to be necessarily contending for the lead all the time, which is real frustrating with Tony. But looking at like his last 7 or 8 starts, he's between 25th and 5th, like every single time he tees it up. So he's going to be one of those guys. Just throw in your bankroll builder or just have as a key piece in your single entries and things like that. So I love Tony Finau's value. I mean, he's the only guy that I've got rated as green. Yeah, like severely green. He's got a 34% edge on the market, according to my shitty numbers. Like I'm still tinkering around, but he seems to me like the biggest value. Like he's got the 5th rated guy in my model overall. Like when you look at what he's capable over a long period of time, and he's what 11th, 12th in the market. Like price wise. So I think Tony Finau's. I've been buying a lot of him, and you started having like these obsessions with golfers, like you see their price and they're like, oh, he's like just a walking money bag, but
he's one of 5 golfers this year since the calendar year to gain strokes possibly in every single start that he's played in this year. Number 1. Number 2, the strategy that I would love to use, let's say I wanted to booster up my Tony Finau position is, let's say you're a rare level player, which Byron, it sounds like you are.
Yep.
I would buy, and this is what I did with Corey Connors. I bought 10 Corey Connors cards, and he was in every single rare lineup of mine last week, or like 10 of 12. So I just load up on the tier below. Cost me very inexpensive for that lineup to get into a player that I believe is going to win. And Tony Finau would be one I would be doing that at the core level. I bet his core cards are probably like. What is it there? Like $20, $60? I can't.
I mean, if he's $88 as a rare, I mean, he's going to be so affordable
like $14 or $15 somewhere in that range at the core. Yeah. You put him up with 4 other good rare cards. That's such a good lineup. I think you put that in, to the 1 to win 7.5K, instead of the bankroll booster. That's the strategy I love using in ReignMakers. Loading up on those stars at the tier below and trying to find the right pieces at captain around them.
Yeah, I've been doing the core thing like you just mentioned with Rahm. I'm not spending $200 on a Rahm card, and I'll just spend $35 and get 7 of them, and then just have them in all my lineups because I think he's super solid. So really interesting. I love that. That's a great, little tidbit that people don't necessarily think about, and you can have that one core. I try to get sneaky with the Ryan Palmer, Nate Lashley, and Ryan Moore last week in the elite realm.
Yeah,
and all 3 of them missed the cut. So like I got sneaky and cheeky.
Lineups you have to make sometimes with your cards for fun. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, but my rares all like Siwoo was in, and like my rares were solid, but my elite guys just dropped the bag. So it wasn't ideal, but I took a chance, right? And I tried to win another card. It was to win another elite. I tried to like double down.
The prize pack, yeah,
the little prize pack. So that was what I got up to. Do we want to scoot down the board? Yeah, I think I still like Tyrrell Hatton this week. And I got greedy with the Tyrrell Hatton rare card last year. I wanted to sell it for like $200 because I figured he would be like, if he doesn't sell, then so be it. But then one of my core Tyrrells sold in my freaking lineup, and then that lineup was butchered. I was an idiot, like I looked at my lineups, and then 3 minutes before lock, he got bought.
So
3 minutes.
Okay, so I played NFL. That's how I really got into the ReignMaker. You guys know I'm a PGA guy, but to get into ReignMakers, I got into NFL. So I felt like coming over to PGA, I had the basics of the game and maybe some intricacies. And that is one thing that I learned that is a strategy some gamers will use is they'll wait till the last 3 minutes to buy cards to put into their lineups so that other lineups are dead, thus increasing their EV potential. Again, I think it's a little slimy, to be honest, but it's part of the game, I guess. It's kind of one of those things, withdraws in regular DFS is, it sucks, but it's just part of the game, unfortunately. Yeah.
And you know what? There also could be guys just like me who wakes up like with sleep in his eyes and like buys a few cards and throws it into a lineup kind of thing. Just like from the bed there in the sack, you're just kind of throwing a lineup together. Like that's probably a few guys too, but I mean, it's if you're going to be greasy, you got to be greasy. It's a game. There's rules, and there's no rules against being greasy. So, I want to mention Tom Hoagie this week as well. I feel like he's sitting here at a casual little 37.50, for one of the cheapest rare cards you can find out there, on Hoagie, and he's one of the best iron players in the world. So if you're going to give me an elite trait like that, go into Ball Striker's Paradise. He's not the accuracy of the tee, but he's totally fine dealing with this Augusta golf course. Second time round now, I believe, and I mean, coming off a course record at Players is all you want. So I'm loving Tom Hoagie. The model's loving him too, and I like him in this range. Is there any guys that you kind of eyeing, or are you just totally avoiding these kind of golfers and kind of sticking to the Group 1, Group 2s to make sure that you got like some upside?
So for me, in ReignMakers, I'm sticking to Group 1, Group 2s in a Masters tournament because it's just we've seen too many times the creme rises to the top in this tournament, always. And so if I'm going to put out a competitive lineup, I will. I'm going to have some lineups of just my leftover cards I haven't sold that I'm going to put out there in some safer tournaments. The way I like to play for when I'm with my backup lineups that I don't actually think are my most competitive, as I like to go for more packs. And so they give out a lot of packs. I'll put into those tournaments, and hopefully one of those guys does well, which can be maybe enough to get me in to the pack range. But other than that, I just think if you're going to try and roll a lineup out there with, guys like, these aren't bad golfers, but if you're going to roll Brian Harmon out and Adam Svensson, who I think are fine, maybe guys I'd consider in DFS for the salary that you have to rate. It's just there's going to be too many lineups that feature, all of Morikawa, Rory, Scheffler, Rahm, that it's just hard to imagine a guy like Kitayama or Mitchell kind of competing in that echelon.
Yeah, Byron, I'm the same way. I'll give you a perfect example. I'm an elite player and down. I have gotten a couple of Cam Young legendary cards, as I mentioned, so it brings me into that realm, right? But my second legendary, because you need two to play at that level, is either Keith Mitchell or Tiger Woods. And in my opinion, Keith Mitchell, great golfer. I'm not putting the Cam Young, Keith Mitchell lineup in the normal contest because I don't think Keith Mitchell can come in the top 20 this week. At Wells Fargo, at Quail Hollow, hell yeah, I'll put that contest with my 3 best elite cards, and I think that'll be one of the best lineups at the legendary level there. But this week, I don't think Tiger can get into the top 15, maybe he can get in the top 20. I don't think Mitchell can get in the top 20. So I'm using those 2 cards with lesser elite cards, and I'm putting them in packs, relying on Cam Young, like I said, to maybe get me into the top 10, put him at captain, and see where it goes. So yeah, I'm the same way as Joel. I'm playing the best players this week. Now, on DFS, we can't do that if we want to play 2 or 3 guys. So I think Tom Hoagie, Keith Mitchell are very interesting. And a couple of guys that we can't play at ReignMakers that I'd like to talk to you guys about. Minwoo Lee and Brooks Koepka at 7,600. I think those are building blocks this week, and really wish they had ReignMaker cards, especially Minwoo, to be honest.
Minwoo, I know.
Oh my
he's
God,
so explosive.
So bad. Yeah, he's a gold mine. So, I don't know what you guys think.
And Aussie around Augusta is something to behold, man. South Africans, Aussies, those boys love themselves, those sandbelt golf courses. We don't have any of those in SA, but, I think we have a lot of parkland tree line courses, and I think, it translates pretty well.
Well, what I'll add about Minwoo, too, is not only is his form unbelievable, he's playing great golf right now, He already has a top 20.
T14. Yeah.
He has a T14 at the match.
Last year, I think he cashed that bet, if I'm not mistaken.
What?
Which bet?
The top debuting bet that they put out each year. Positive.
Yeah.
I don't think any as a first timer. I mean, this dude has got some serious game.
Dude, short game, length, and he's so explosive. It's just like he's got all of it. It just needs to put it together, right?
And he's got the sister story too. Like he's the whole package, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, and to be in contention at the Players, he's got no business being in contention at that golf course. Like, it doesn't suit him at all, you know? So I love his chances this week. I think he's going to be a great play in DFS too. I haven't even looked at his outright odds, because a T14 as a debut and then having just been fiddling around the top of the leaderboards lately, if he's sitting at what, 80?
Yeah, three figures. I would definitely in three figures be interested.
Yeah. So love that. Cool. So we don't have any more guys to really talk about if we've kind of skimmed over the top of them, right? So let's get out of Augusta for 2 seconds and see if we like anybody going into next week. Because that's also, like we've discussed, like a Nick Taylor, Brendan Todd, Matt Kuchar. These are all guys that are not playing this week, that have got great upside, especially going from Augusta to
prices coming down. Like you kind of mentioned, their prices when they're not playing tend to come down. Nick Taylor for me, Joel. I don't know about you, but Nick Taylor is a player now, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, Nick Taylor's been on a tear recently, and this is the type of tournament next week where like Nick Taylor should thrive, right? Because if you put Nick Taylor in the field at the Masters, he's going to get drowned out. He's going to get lost with some of these big names. In this field, there's only a handful of guys you would even definitively say are better than, if that, right? So if you already put him at a talent echelon as everyone else, and now you combine that with his form currently, the way he's looked, I think Nick Taylor is a really good play going into next week, along with some of these other
going into the whole year, really. I mean, he's well into the playoffs too, as well.
Yeah. And that's the other thing that I think gets overlooked often is these guys like Nick Taylor who play more often. They play every week. They play these tournaments. They stack the FedEx points. So like if you look at the FedEx leaderboard, you'll be surprised by some of the guys that are up there, because you're like, really? But really, the fact is, a lot of these guys don't play a lot of those tournaments. So if you're not playing, you can't top 10 or top 20. You can't accrue points. So as long as you're out there, like guys like Seamus Power, they're just accruing points just from playing every week.
Yeah. I mean, out of the guys that are not playing Augusta this week, Nick Taylor's got the second most FedEx Cup points out of everybody else. Yeah. Taylor Montgomery's sitting there. And that's something I want to ask you about, Jason, is I've asked Joel about this previously, but when I'm assuming you're going to be holding your cards because you think that we're going to have utilization of these cards through the Tour Championship.
Yep, for sure. Yep.
Okay. Because that's one thing I was concerned about.
Yeah, and fall swing, they've guaranteed around 700,000 to the fall swing. So
okay, so those cards are still going to be utilized and able to play in lineups going forward after the Tour Championship, because I figured that might be D-Day. Like if you've gathered enough cards and you don't want to lose the resale value, you can sell them to everyone that wants to enter them into the contest. But if you've got them, you might as well play them because you're only going to have one of 30 guys. So
right. So I'll use NFL as my barrier here, just because it's the only thing kind of we have to compare it to. And going into the Super Bowl, obviously anybody that wasn't playing in the Super Bowl, we saw those cards plateau. Like you could go and see right now, let's just take Amon-Ra St. Brown. You don't have to know a ton of football. Obviously a very good wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, who may not even make the playoffs next year. They probably will, given their team. But his cards bottomed at around $299 at the elite level. That's really solid value for a guy going into next year. So what I'm saying to that is, will I unload some of my cards? Unlikely, because DraftKings is committed to making this an at least 2-year runway for the cards. That's what they've committed to with UFC and NFL before it. So for me, I'll take that approach. That's the way I invest. For those cards that say I've added that I don't want anymore, instead of selling them, which I think is probably not going to get me the best value at that point at the end of the season, I'll turn and use those cards that I don't like that much as part of the craft and burn function, which we'll learn more about as time marches on. But it basically is going to allow me to burn those cards out of existence and get packs for next year's cards. So honestly, for me, it's a 2-year investment time frame. likely not going to sell the cards unless we run into a situation where last week where I wanted to fade Ty Hatton and he was the most expensive player on the board. For me, taking advantages of situations like that, if you're not that high on a golfer, I'll sell. But for the most part, I'm a buyer.
Yeah, that's the cool part is if you want to guarantee profit in a week that you have an isolated stud, that's the way to go about it, right? Because that price will immediately drop the following week. You just go buy him back again. Like that's
if
totally
you really
fine.
want him, go buy him back. Yep.
Yeah.
And for planning purposes, DraftKings has already told us what the pot is going to be each week of the year. So you can look this up. You can see what the prizes are, what they're paying for within each tier and range. So like if you're modeling this out, if you're planning what you want to do for the year, you know how much you can make per tournament, where they're going to be spending
$1 million for the playoffs this year. $1 million.
And so you already know how much you want to invest, right? So like when we're looking ahead for next week's tournament, I can already tell you what the prizes look like next week. It's not going to be as much as the Masters, right? But I do know what it's going to be and how much I want to invest to get into that tournament.
Yeah, actually, RBC is actually the same amount. 300
bucks. It's top tier.
And back to back, which is nice. A good bit of equity coming in these next 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, because it is nice to get the top 50 paid in $100 versus like just 50 last week. That's real. Yeah. It's real nice. You can almost take care of a.
I will say, I think they flattened out the payout structure a little bit because I actually noticed that into week 2. We were like a 40% payout in week 1, and it went down to like 14% with not that much more card supply out there. So I wonder if they're tinkering with that a little bit. I've noticed that it is rather flat up top for this type of contest. I think Elite last week was, 15 to the top, and I think 8th got like 3,500, which is kind of flat for a DraftKings payout of how they do things. So I wonder if we see a little equity taken away from the bottom side of that and pay out more places as time marches forward. I'll be interested to see what DraftKings does with that.
Yeah, which to me I'm fine with that, because I don't have a solid player pool just yet. I've got nice guys, which
I think more people are in line with you there though. Really, it's like, hey, let's just build. This is build, and the better players that build a good portfolio will end up getting paid off, especially as the season marches on.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. And something that I've been using to kind of generate a long-term ranking is the FedEx Cup points that the guy has, because you're going to need to be inside the top 30 to make it to the Tour Championship. And if you suck it up in those 2 events leading up to it, that's fine if you've got enough points to kind of carry you through, like a Kurt Kitayama, Taylor Montgomery. Those are guys that don't necessarily have to perform that well, but you can still garnish value from them as that events like narrow down the player pool, right? And just increase the demand for those golfers. So it's just really interesting, dude. Like there's all these different dynamics going on.
Yeah, one market that I think will be really fun to watch and be invested in is in the last couple events of the year is watching that top 70 bubble, because the guys that say are on that fringe are probably going to be pretty cheap. And when we get into the playoffs, I believe the 3 events are no cuts. So those cards are going to be super valuable in any case. We know in no cuts the differential between the top and the bottom in terms of points is not all that much. So that'll be a fun market to watch, gambling on a couple of guys that might make it or might not.
I know, like literally like watching a guy to finish T35 to get like 3 more FedEx Cup points just so that you can just make it to the next week. It's going to be crazy. And like, this is what this is about, because you don't care about that in DFS, like he's going to give you some points, but the long-term runway is not there, which is what just excites me so much about this stuff. It's so fun. It's really, really fun. Gentlemen, I typically try to go an hour, but is there anything else you want to talk about, or it's the Masters? Let's talk some shit. Let's finish it. Let's talk another 12 minutes of Masters. Yeah,
I need to get some top picks for you guys under 7,500 on the ReignMaker side. I mean, now that we're doing this, I like Danny Willett. I don't know if you guys want to talk me off of him or not. I do also like him as a flyer for, say, let's take your example, Byron. Let's take Tony Finau and say, okay, he's our player. We want to put him into bankroll boosters. Danny Willett is the guy that I would add that I think gets to the weekend and is going to give you some utility for the rest of the year. And I like him on DraftKings. So kind of a 3-way there.
Interesting. Danny Willett was a guy I also had flagged as a value play. Small exposure, but a guy that was in my player pool. But it's interesting that you also saw that. You're seeing something similar to me. So I wonder what his ownership will end up looking like, because I wonder one thing I do see where it's going to have to come to fruition is there's not I don't see who the really popular players are under, let's say, 7,200. Yeah. So people are going to start flocking toward, maybe it is guys like Danny Willett or someone else down there who Willett does have some Masters experience, which people love this week, as they should. Yeah. And I'm flocking toward the guys who have good big resumes at LIV, because I think they underprice those guys, and that's just the only way I can tend to find some value this week. Other than that, it's a struggle to round out the bottom of your lineup in DFS.
What do you boys think of Kurt Kitayama this week?
This guy continues to perform. I mean, him and Chris Kirk deservedly are getting attention and should be at 7,100. Yeah. I mean, it's tough because Kitayama is a guy that's so hot or cold that I could see him finishing DFL or easily getting through to the weekend. I could see both outcomes with this guy. Whereas Chris Kirk, I would see Chris Kirk as a more steady option. If I was in a cash lineup or a ReignMakers, I'd add Chris Kirk. GPP, I might go to Kitayama. I think he might be a better option there, higher upside.
Yeah, and I just love he's to me just like a poor man's Cam Smith in a way. Not with the short game, but off the tee. Like his stuff is all over the place, but you can totally get away with that, yeah. And I just love he's so long. He's so long, man.
Yeah, so sneaky long for such a tiny guy too. I mean, he's not big in stature. He pummels like off-ball.
Yeah, million miles. Seamus Power, Tom Hoagie, two guys that I'm just Seamus, dude. Seamus is a thoroughbred at these majors. 4 majors last year. He missed. The only cut he missed was in his freaking home continent.
It seemed like maybe he got a little too excited for that one.
Yeah, probably. Probably dived into the Guinness a little too much, or had his mom nagging him to pick up his laundry around the house. Who the hell knows what he was up to? But I love him at majors, dude. His game is perfect for majors, and he's been rattling off some good stuff. Come through a bad Florida swing. He's not a fan of Florida, that guy. His API results are hot garbage, like back-to-back times. I think one of his worst tournaments last year was API. So love me some Seamus.
I like Seamus. I think it's a good call. Seamus has struggled the last 2 weeks, which is going to maybe turn some people off to him. But before the last 2 weeks, he was on a heck of a tear where he had, I think in his last 7 tournaments before that, every result was top 25, and top 25 being the worst of those, right? He had a bunch of top 10s in there. Seamus had been playing some really good golf from end of 2022 to early 2023. And
so he got to Florida. Like Florida is not Seamus's jam at all.
Exactly.
You're another guy that just won the Valspar. I gave it away with that. Who is very good in these tough events is Taylor Moore. I'm going to have some shares in both ReignMakers and DraftKings as a first-time debutant. Definitely have interest in him. And let me ask you guys, I don't follow the college game as much as, say, when Morikawa was there and Hovland was there, but I've heard quite a lot of rumblings about this Gordon Sargent guy. Have you guys heard of him before? I just brought him up. I saw him touted by another one of the fantasy golf sites out there saying his talent level right now is approaching where Rahm and Morikawa came out of college in terms of strokes gained. So what do you guys know about this guy, if anything? And is he in your minds this week for either bets or DraftKings?
I'm going to have to put a bet on him because I'm writing an article about it, but I have no idea, dude. I might just make it like a first round top 20.
Top amateur bet of plus 140 is what I'm seeing the line right now.
I could get behind a top amateur bet for sure.
Okay.
I wouldn't want him against the pros. In terms of having a top 20 or even 40 finish, that's asking a lot of an amateur. But even like the top amateurs, guys who end up becoming Victor Hovland and things like that, their first go here in this environment with all the pressure playing in their first Masters, it's a lot to ask.
Sure is.
Did you see that video?
He was probably the last amateur I remember doing well here, but then that all fell apart on Sunday. I don't know if you guys remember that. That was epic. But
who's this?
DeChambeau.
Oh yeah,
it was. I think it was DeChambeau and Longer, if I'm not mistaken, and Smiley Kaufman here. I think they were all wrapped up into one, and they all blew it, if I'm not mistaken.
While we're at it, does anyone like Bryson this week?
So I was talking to Drew on the Fantasy Golf podcast earlier. the way we are both handling the live guys is if they've shown any form on any tour this calendar year, they have to be considered, in our opinion. Don't care about the 54 holes. Bryson's one guy that really hasn't shown form. So for me, I'd go to Patrick Reed a little bit cheaper. He's just shown form, a former winner here. That's where I'm going with my live share in that range.
Yeah. I've obviously got a Cam Smith issue, and I don't know what to do with him this week.
Just play him.
Yeah. I think we're going to have to.
I think we're going to have to as well. He's not a guy that hasn't shown any form, but he's a guy you have to bet on.
Yeah.
I have a kind of controversial take here that most people, I think, are going to dislike. I kind of am rooting for one of the live guys to come through because I just think it's going to make it's going to be good for golf. It'll make the golf the headline on SportsCenter the next day. Everyone will be talking about the live guys, the controversy.
It's funny.
I just think it'd be so different, and people wouldn't know what to do. They'd be like, "Whoa, the live guys won the Masters."
It's funny you say that. Cam Smith basically said the same thing in his press conference today. He's like, I'm obviously rooting for myself or a live guy to do it because I think it would make us legitimate. Like, that's basically what he said today. And he did say that he thinks it's very important for live guys to at least play well so that they can get away from the stigma of we can't compete against the PGA Tour guys because we're not doing it all year. So I think we see at least 3 live guys in the top 20, which I think would be a pretty good showing.
Yeah, I mean, what? There's how many of them? 9 or so?
No, is it more?
19? I don't even know how.
18, something in that range.
Yeah, it's a hefty amount of them, and it's driving me nuts because like there's no data on these guys. Like what's their proximity numbers look like over the last year and a half? I don't know. Like who's putting well, who's not. Like it's just
all we've got is the positional thing that DraftKings gives us T54 at 54. Speaking of that, Phil Mickelson, guys, he's totally done, right? Forever. I mean, could you ever see him coming back?
Dude, I think he's been chipped, like a Saudi chip inside of him. Like it's
awful.
Yeah. No, they've overridden him, I think. He's in trouble. The guy's he's on a long-term death row. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with Phil, but you never know, dude. Like, imagine he does it again and does the person wins the PGA and then comes and wins the Masters like 2 years later after having the biggest fall off ever.
I mean, it would be the most remarkable sports story, as would be a Tiger Woods win. But do you guys think the weather honestly keeps him out of the top 10 this week? Because I think he can compete with the guys, but 53 degrees on Saturday morning with rain. That's going to be a problem for him.
That was what it was like last year again, right? When his metal leg just turns into an ice cube.
Yep.
Just for the purpose of putting a smile on your face, can you imagine a Sunday pairing as the final pairing of Tiger and Phil at the match?
The dreams are totally made up. You know what I'll settle for? A Cam Smith and Jordan Spieth. Yeah. I will settle for that Sunday pairing. That would be it.
Dude,
throw in Scotty and Rory in the penultimate, and I won't move an inch on Sunday.
God, my desk's getting like it's busy rising on me here. We've got some stuff going on downstairs. This is probably one of the most expected Masters you can think of, right? There's like so many. There's usually all these storylines, but we've got so many more this year, man. Like Big Cat and then the Live Boys. And
then all the stuff going on in the fantasy and sports betting side, I think it probably will be one of, if not the most watched Masters and most intrigued Masters of recent times, for sure.
Yeah. All we need is Caitlin Clark to get a sponsor's invite and tee it up for us and be that 90th golfer this week. Because we got big love for her over here in Iowa, folks. We love old Caitlin Clark, and I can
understand why. She's a mega star.
Mega star, bro. Mega star. Last person we want to mention, Aldrich Potgieter from South Africa.
Yeah, what's up with this guy?
Dude, did Joe Nicely put that article out there, and I didn't even know this about Potgieter. Dude, a unit. Like, this guy is a freight train. Just absolute monster. Like, around Augusta, give me a little bit of length, see what happens. South African boy, you never know.
There's one in the pipeline though Byron, for South Africa.
Yes.
Even better. James Duprez was tweeting about him the other day. What is the kid, like 14 or 15?
It was under 19 SA champs.
Yes.
And
there we go.
yeah.
And he won by how many? Like
he was 35 under par, and everyone else was like 14, I think. That was like second place or something ridiculous. 24 shots ahead, I think, is what.
We're going to have to keep an eye on this kid for sure.
Yes. I mean, dude, sensation stuff. We haven't had, since Louis kind of broke his back, we haven't really had that guy we haven't had too many South Africans. You know, we used to have a stable of
South
South
that's not playing this week, now that we're on South Africans, that I am high on, maybe a little bit of an injury problem, but it's Garrett Cahill. I mean, I love this guy's game. Yeah. And I think that he's kind of one of those cheaper tier cards that in these weak field events is going to slide into the top 15 or 10 of an odds board one time. And when he does, that 150 turns into 350 at the elite level like that. So just another ReignMaker tidbit while we're talking about South Africa. Yeah.
No,
another South African that's been killing it, not going to help anyone this week or in the near future, but Brandon Grace. I mean, I just take a look at the live leaderboards.
He's on it every week, yeah.
He's been playing great. So it's unfortunate that we can't utilize him at all, but he's playing great.
Right. And then all these guys go and play this amazing golf, but their world rankings are just plummeting. They're just not even going to ever be able to be in these majors, man. It's so disappointing. They need to figure out a thing so we can. These weeks are so fun when these live golfers are with us. So
even more fun than before, given the PGA versus live. Honestly, it's even more fun than before. Right. Probably is for the golfers as well.
It is, dude. And all we've had to hate in the past is Patrick Reed. Now we get like 19 Patrick Reeds. You know, like that's the fun part, you know.
I haven't been DJ and Brooks Koepka for a long time, so I'll just continue to do that.
Dude, I love it. Gentlemen, this is the Back Nine Bet Show. Thank you so much, Jason, for showing up, pitching up. Yeah, it was a blast. I loved getting all your information, all your tips. Share with people where they can find you one more time before we get out of here.
Yeah, so at DFS Golfer 23 on Twitter, I share all of my stuff onto there. But if you're looking for ReignMaker specific, check out at Lucky Trader and my content over there. I do a slate breakdown every single week. And for the DFS and betting stuff, check out Fantasy Golf Bag.
Awesome. Joel, talk to us about the Win Daily stuff.
We got another draft cast coming at you tomorrow night at 9:00. The Masters draft cast is going to be a special one. Tune in. The crew is on a hot streak. We'll be having some fun, and you can find me at Draftmaster Flex. Hopefully, I'll be dropping some plays this week, but Masters week, so good luck, everyone. It's going to be fun. Even if you don't win, it's still going to be fun.
Exactly. I go full degenerate mode this week. Like, I don't give a shit if I lose money. It is just we're betting crazy. Holding ones, Corey Connors, Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa, all going to be individual individual aces for those three guys. It goes off the deep end, folks. Like, it goes bad. But I'm going to be sitting in my garage, drinking beers, doing podcasts after. It's going to be a great week of golf. Check out rotoballer.com for all your needs on fantasy golf stuff. And we'll be doing podcasts on Tuesday and Wednesday night. I've got Spencer Aguiar coming onto my show on Wednesday. He's finally decided to join me. I finally managed to pry him out of his schedule and get him on the show. So it's going to be a fun one. But till tomorrow, folks, we'll catch you.